Empress Kalira Threx stood in the hall of Accord, watching the human walk toward her. He was smaller than she had expected. The Varushi were tall and imposing, their slate indigo skin threaded with faint silver patterns that pulsed with slow bioluminescence. Their eyes glimmered like distant suns, bright and predatory. Beside them, the human looked almost fragile, so unremarkable that she nearly smiled. His name was Evan Hale. He came from Earth, a minor world clinging to the rim of explored space. The marriage had been arranged by diplomats desperate for an end to war. The Vershi Imperium and the Terran Union had been locked in open conflict for 5 decades. Now they wanted peace. A royal marriage would bind it. Kalira had ruled 19 star systems for over 200 years. She had shattered fleets, broken insurgencies, and forced rivals to kneel. She had expected the Terrans to send someone of consequence, a decorated commander, a visionary scientist, a political heavyweight. Instead, they sent a horticultural engineer, a man who cultivated crops. Whispers rippled through the hall. Counselors masked their amusement poorly. Military commanders made no effort at all. Their disdain was obvious. Even the attendants avoided meeting Kalira's gaze. Evan walked the long aisle between rows of Rashi nobility. He wore simple attire, practical and undecorated. His dark hair was kept short but unruly, as if he never bothered taming it. His face was plain, forgettable in a way that felt deliberate. When he reached her, he smiled. Not boldly, not nervously. Just a small, calm smile like someone greeting an acquaintance, not an empress. The ceremony was brief. Kalira spoke the ancient binding words. Evan repeated them in flawless Vershi, his pronunciation careful, precise, that earned her first flicker of surprise. When it ended, they were bound legally, politically, irrevocably. That night, the palace hosted a formal feast. Kalira sat upon the obsidian throne. Evan sat beside her in a lower chair, the symbolism unmistakable. Nobles approached in sequence, offering congratulations thick with insincerity. Most ignored him entirely. Some took pleasure in probing him. "So," drawled Counselor Marith, "you cultivate soil." "Yes," Evan replied. "You place seeds into dirt and hope they survive." "I specialize in adaptive agriculture," Evan said evenly. "I help frontier colonies produce food under hostile conditions." "How inspiring," Marith said dryly. "And what wars have you fought? What victories define you?" "None," Evan said. "I'm not a soldier. I'm just good with plants." Laughter echoed through the chamber. Kalira felt heat rise beneath her skin. This was not oversight. It was insult. A message from the Terrans. "We do not fear you." But as the night stretched on, she noticed things. When Evan entered a space, his gaze moved constantly, sweeping exits, corners, guard placements. It was subtle, too quick for most to catch. But Kalira had spent centuries studying enemies. When he walked, he made no sound. His steps were measured, balanced, almost floating. Farmers did not move that way. Once, when Marith pressed too hard, Evan's expression shifted. The warmth vanished, replaced by something distant and calculating. It lasted less than a heartbeat. Kalira saw it. "You move like a predator," she said later, alone in her chambers. Evan glanced up from unpacking his single travel case. "I grew up on a frontier settlement. Arden Reach. Dangerous place." "That explains how you walk," she said. "What about how you watch people? Rooms?" He smiled again. "Gentle. Disarming. Habit," he said. "If you grow up somewhere unsafe, you learn awareness early." Kalira did not believe him, but she allowed it to stand. Curiosity had replaced irritation. Over the following days, she watched him. Evan spent hours in the neglected palace gardens. Within a week, he had cleared dead growth and replanted entire sections. Some flora was Vershi. Some was unmistakably Terran. "What is that?" Kalira asked, pointing to a low green plant crowned with crimson fruit. "Peppervine," Evan said. "Edible. Resilient. I thought your people might appreciate it." She studied his hands scarred, calloused from labor. Then she noticed his forearms. Thin white lines. Clean. Intentional. "Blade scars. Farming accidents," Evan said mildly when he noticed her attention. "I used to be careless." "Very careless," she replied. "I learned." At night, he slept lightly. The faintest sound woke him. He listened before relaxing again. Veterans slept that way. She ordered a background inquiry. The report was immaculate. Evan Hale, born on Arden Reach, studied agricultural engineering, 15 years with the Colonial Expansion Bureau. No commendations, no incidents, too perfect. Kalira waited. Evan remained courteous. He mastered Vajreshi fluency in weeks, learned every servant's name, spoke easily with guards, especially those assigned to sensitive corridors. One evening, she found him studying Vareshi battle doctrine. An unusual interest, she said. I prefer understanding my surroundings, he replied. Your people fight differently. Most Terrans find our wars excessive. Most Terrans don't look closely, he said. I do. 6 months passed. The gardens flourished. Earth and Vareshi plants grew side by side, thriving. Nobles sought his advice. Servants trusted him. Guards respected him. He listened. He helped. And he chose his friendships with care. The master chef, the security director, the palace archivist. You found the tunnel behind the eastern wing, Kalira said one day. Evan looked up, dirt on his hands. Wrong turn. And the passage beneath the throne? Archivist mentioned it. And the emergency exit from my private quarters? He paused. That one, he said quietly. I looked for intentionally, in case something went wrong. You expect danger. I always do, he said. It keeps me alive. That night, Kalira did not sleep. This was not a cultivator. This was a weapon that had learned how to look harmless. Kalira decided to stop observing. She decided to test him. The following morning, she invited Evan to the Western training court. The Vareshi Guard were already assembled, practicing with blunted plasma blades and reinforced gauntlets. Their movements were precise, brutal, honed over decades of warfare. Evan stood at her side, hands folded loosely behind his back. His expression showed polite interest. Nothing more, but Kalira watched his eyes. They never stopped moving. He tracked foot placement, timing, balance. He noticed weaknesses before the instructors corrected them. You understand what you're seeing, she said. I understand movement, Evan replied. Would you like to try? He shook his head. I don't fight. A simple drill, she said. They will restrain themselves. She expected refusal. Instead, he shrugged and stepped onto the stone floor. A murmur rippled through the guards. One stepped forward, Rethan, young, confident, eager to impress. He bowed once, then settled into a combat stance. The signal sounded. Rethan struck fast and hard. Evan wasn't there. He shifted just enough for the blow to miss, feet gliding across the stone. Rethan followed, pressing harder. Evan kept moving, never blocking, never countering, only drifting out of reach. The court grew quiet. Rethan's breathing quickened. His strikes grew wider, sloppier. Then Evan moved. One step, one redirect. A hand on Rethan's shoulder. The guard hit the ground, stunned, staring up in confusion. Evan offered him a hand. You lost your balance. Laughter broke out uneasy, uncertain. Kalira felt no amusement. That was not luck. That was control. Where did you learn to move like that? She asked later. Arden Reach, Evan said. If you weren't quick, you didn't eat. No animal teaches that. He met her gaze. The most dangerous animals there were human. Another half-truth. She let it pass. Weeks followed. Kalira noticed patterns now that she could not unsee. Evan rose early. Exercised alone. When he believed himself unobserved, his movements changed precise sequences, fluid transitions, nothing wasted, not labor, training. He read Vareshi military doctrine, studied historical engagements, asked careful questions about borders, rivals, supply chains. You're studying my empire, Kalira said one evening. I'm learning my home. You're learning it like someone preparing for war. For a fraction of a second, the mask slipped. Something sharp surfaced, something cold. Then it vanished. I'm curious, he said lightly. Terrans tend to be. Kalira did not answer. She had seen enough. Whatever the Terrans had sent her, it was not a farmer. It was something hidden, something dangerous. And somehow, she felt safer because of it. The warning came at midnight. Her cousin, High Commander Verex, was returning from the frontier with his fleet, officially, to celebrate her marriage. Evan was beside her when she read the message. He went still. Tell me about him, he said. Kalira looked up sharply. Why? Because your posture changed when you read his name, Evan said. That wasn't relief. Verex has wanted my throne for a century, she said. He believes the Imperium should be ruled by force, not negotiation. How many ships? 60. Evan's eyes hardened. Then he's not coming to celebrate. You think he intends to remove you? Evan finished. Soon. For the first time, Kalira felt fear and exhilaration. 3 weeks later, the palace shook. Explosions tore through the night. Fires streaked across the sky as warships descended. Vareshi insignia marked them all. Warex. Her chamber doors burst open, but not with her guards. Shadow-armored soldiers poured in, weapons raised, movements precise. The Empress is secured, one said into a calm. Kalira straightened. I will not be taken. The soldier raised his weapon. Then Evan stepped out of the darkness behind them. The first man fell without sound. The second turned too late. Plasma fire filled the room, but Evan was already moving. Low, fast, efficient. 4 seconds later, 6 soldiers lay dead. Move, Evan said. His voice was calm. Empty. More incoming. Who are you? Kalira whispered. Someone who keeps you alive. He took her arm firm, careful. Do you trust me? She looked at the bodies. Yes. They vanished into the palace's hidden arteries. Evan moved with certainty, navigating passages she had never known. When soldiers appeared, he removed them quietly, decisively. How many? She asked once. 17, he said. Stay close. They reached a sealed communications chamber buried deep beneath the palace. Evan activated ancient systems with practiced ease. This is Sergeant Evan Hale, he said into the mic. Protocol Nightseed. Asset secure. Hostile takeover in progress. A pause. Copy, Sergeant, came the reply. Strike team inbound. Kalira stared at him. Sergeant. He met her eyes. Terran Special Operations. 4 years embedded. My marriage was part of the mission. Did any of it matter? She asked. His voice softened. Protecting you was the job. Caring about you wasn't. The walls shook. They're coming, Evan said, checking his scanner. 42. You can't face that alone. Evan smiled, but it wasn't gentle. Watch. He stepped into the corridor. Kalira had seen war. She had never seen this. Evan turned the narrow passage into a killing ground. He moved like inevitability. Soldiers advanced and fell. Numbers meant nothing. When grenades came, he dragged her back, sealing the chamber. 23 left, he said. 45 minutes. They fought side by side. When it ended, Evan collapsed against the wall, bleeding, barely conscious. Do not die, Kalira said. Wasn't planning to, he murmured. Reinforcements arrived moments later. They found an empress standing amid devastation, and a Terran who had held a palace alone. Evan Hale did not remember collapsing. He remembered noise fading, pressure lifting, darkness closing in like a curtain drawn with care. When he woke, the world smelled of antiseptic and metal. He lay in a medical bay aboard a Terran warship, suspended in a field that hummed softly around his body. Tubes traced into his arms and chest. Every breath hurt. Kalira was seated beside the bed. She had removed her ceremonial armor. Without it, she looked smaller, not weaker, but more real. Her luminous eyes were fixed on him, unblinking. You are awake, she said. Temporarily, Evan replied. His voice was rough. That's a good sign. A Terran medic glanced up from a console. You're alive because you refused to die, she said flatly, and because you're very difficult to shut down. How bad? Evan asked. Bad enough, the medic said. You'll recover. Slowly, some damage won't fully heal. Kalira did not look away. When the medics finished and withdrew, silence filled the room. You lied to me, Kalira said at last. Yes. You were sent to deceive my court. Yes. You married me as part of a mission. Yes. She folded her hands. Why did you stay? You could have extracted weeks ago. Evan stared at the ceiling. At first, because orders. And later. He turned his head to face her, because leaving felt wrong. She studied him for a long moment. Varex is in custody, she said. His coup failed. Your people arrived in force. He surrendered when he realized the narrative had turned against him. Good, Evan said. He was counting on speed. He underestimated you, Kalira said. Most people do. The days that followed were filled with consequences. Varex was paraded before the High Conclave in chains. Evidence of his betrayal spread quickly. The surviving members of his faction abandoned him without hesitation. The Terran fleet remained in orbit, not as conquerors, but as witnesses. 2 weeks later, Kalira stood before the restored council. Evan stood beside her, bandaged, pale, unsteady but upright. "The Terrans sent a spy to marry our empress," one counselor said. "This is an outrage." "They sent a protector," Kalira corrected calmly. "Without him, I would be dead and this Imperium broken. But he deceived us." Evan stepped forward. "I did, because honesty would have made me useless. If my role had been known, your enemies would have removed me before I could act." "And now?" the counselor asked. "What are you now?" Evan did not hesitate. "Whatever the Empress decides." Silence followed. Kalira looked at him, this man who had arrived unremarkable, who had listened, planted gardens, memorized names, and then stood alone against an army. "My husband will remain my husband," she said. "He will continue his work here, in the gardens, in council, in protection, and he will be remembered as the most dangerous cultivator this Imperium has ever known." Uneasy laughter followed. Later, alone, Kalira asked the question she had held back since the beginning. Was any of it real? Evan took her hand. His grip was careful, restrained. "The mission was real," he said. "The cover was real. Somewhere along the way, the line disappeared." "Do you love me?" she asked. He considered the word. "I would die for you," he said quietly. "I almost did. That's the closest definition I have." Kalira leaned against him. "My people believed strength was visible," she said. "Size, force, fear." Evan smiled faintly. Humans survive by being underestimated. Below their window, Terran plants grew beside Vareshi flora, roots entwined, thriving together. The Imperium and the Terran Union called it diplomacy. Kalira knew better. It was because a quiet man arrived pretending to grow food and reminded the galaxy what humanity truly was. Not fragile, not weak, patient, adaptive, and capable of ending a war before anyone realized it had begun.